1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Maximum brightness. Pew pew. Pew pew. Pew pew. Pew pew. Pew. Pew pew. Pew pew. Pew pew, pew pew, pew pew. Pew pew. Pew pew. Pew pew. I'm going to start this section by again saying thank you so much to Sparks. You're an absolute lunatic for offering to send me this scope for a review. It means a whole lot, as I'm sure it does to every single person watching. For any of you that don't know, this is a $1,400 optic, and the mount's about another $200. So for him to be willing to send a $1,600 setup to me for review halfway across the country is pretty damn appreciated. So Sparks, thank you so much. Segueing right into that, I can tell you that you made a outstanding purchase. But before we get into that, Sparks gave me permission to tell a little bit of a story. So the story goes that he had bought a 1:6 Gen 2 non-E, which, if you are unfamiliar with, is a little bit heavier than the E version. I bought it used, left it on the same mount, this is an American Defense quick detach mount, and he would switch it between rifles. So one day, he had taken off one of his guns, left it on the bed of his truck, and accidentally pulled away. So the scope took a pretty hard hit onto the ground, but it didn't cause any severe damage. It just dented in the front bell. So wanting to make sure that the scope was in good shape, he reached out to Vortex, told them what had happened. They said send it in. He sent it in, and then they sent him this being the E version of that same exact scope. The main difference between the two is just the weight. This comes in about 25 ounces. The non-E version comes in around 30 ounces or something like that. So there you have it again, another good testament to Vortex's warranty. Another thing he had mentioned were these marks on the battery cover for the Illumination. He had done this with a screwdriver that was a little bit too small, and as you can see, it just popped out of the groove and scratched up the top. So recommend you use a coin for this. It is actually radiused in there. They probably used a woodruff cutter for this. Get a coin, probably a quarter, put it in there and use that. You won't have to worry about this. But I'm sure if you wanted to complain to Vortex, they'd probably send you a new cap for free. Me personally, I don't mind a couple scratches on everything that I own. It just goes to show that I actually use it. It is going to be with a very heavy heart that I have to send this back to Sparks, but it's not mine. If Vortex had sent me this, I would tell them that they probably wouldn't be getting it back, but I can't do that in this case, so don't worry, Sparks, you're definitely going to get this back. But it's been an awesome couple of weeks. I've used this many times, and every time I look through it, every time I pick it up, every time I just do what I'm doing right now and just admire it, it is awesome. There are no real downsides to this. Couple little things, but nothing gigantic. Right off the bat, we're going to start with the controls. So, adjustable eyepiece, tight, really tight. You don't have to worry about this thing coming loose. Also, zero play in this. A little hard for you to pick up, but it is super tight in there. Both turrets are target quality. They're perfect. Super sharp and crisp detents, very audible. You can hear this thing from feet away, let alone right on top of it. They're perfect. They don't need to be this good, but they certainly don't need to be this big. I mean, you're talking 20 full MRADs per rotation. That's a little excessive, I feel, for a capped LPVO. At least Vortex was smart enough to cap the turrets, because you don't really need target turrets on LPVO with a reticle like this being the VMR-2 reticle. You just don't. You're good out to about 600 yards, and beyond that, if you have to make minor adjustments, you hold over calling for wind. Remember, in 3-gun, it's all about speed, and that is what a scope like this was intended for, speed. So much so that Jerry Michalik, which, by the way, if you don't know who Jerry Michalik is, go to his YouTube channel and first subscribe, then watch about 14 hours worth of his content, then realize that he is one of the world's fastest speed shooters and 3-gun competition champions in the world, and realize that he uses one of these on his competition rifle. So if that doesn't say that this thing is incredible, then I don't know what will. Yeah, so it's friggin' that good. One awesome feature that I talked about in the unboxing is this locking illumination ring, which is friggin' awesome. I wish every scope had this. Super sharp and crisp. Because again, you go put this in your range bag, most regular turrets, you might snag it. You might not realize that you put it on 10, almost your maximum brightness setting, and then throw it in your bag and let it sit there for God knows how long and kill your battery. Not with this. Awesome. Great. While we're on the topic of illumination, it's the brightest illumination of any scope. And I'm not just limiting that to LPVOs. I'm also talking about dedicated red dots or reflexes. I think maybe the Vortex UH1 was a little bit brighter, but for how bright this thing is at 11, I don't know of a situation you'd ever really need to use it. So I'd rather have it be able to go brighter than I'd ever need, and this surely does that. It is incredibly bright. Speaking of incredibly bright, the glass. You can talk about it all day long and how bright it is and how good it is, but my videos are trying to show you how good it is, and it is fantastic. The 1X is as close to a legitimate 1X as you will ever find on an LPVO, I feel. Certainly the closest I've ever come with all the scopes that I've ever looked through. However, with that does come a bit of a price, and that is in the form of slight fisheyeing. Yes, at 1X this thing might be really close to true 1X, but at the very outside of the picture you will notice a very slight amount of fisheyeing. It's not terrible, but it's there. However, you can very easily look past that. If you're focusing at the middle of the reticle, it's very easy to just have that wash into the outside, which on this is extremely easy at 1X. The outside of the scope literally just melts away. When you get it just right, it literally looks like you're looking through a piece of plain glass with a crosshair in it. It's incredible, to say the least. And every single person that I've had look through this will agree with me on that. The good news is that minor amount of fisheye that you get, the second you bump this up to anything past 1, like there, and it's basically gone. And it only gets better from there. Once you crank this thing up all the way to 6X, it is still as big and as bright as it was on 1X. The only thing is the eye box gets a little bit tighter, but it's nowhere even near unusable. It's awesome. But that also brings me to the one point that I kind of have an issue with. You see, this is a $1,400 scope, and that's a fair amount of change for anybody. I don't care who you are. And for that, you get the scope. That's it. This throw lever is not included, and this throw lever is $60. And it is absolutely necessary when using this scope. You can't really use this efficiently without having a throw lever, especially if you're in some sort of competition and you need to rapidly change between targets and acquire. It's an absolute must. This ring is very tight, and it's very warm in my apartment right now, like mid-70s, which is uncomfortable to say the least. But if it was cold outside, I'm not turning this easily. It would literally feel like it was in molasses. So the throw lever is an absolute must. I'm sure it's going to loosen up over time, but do you really want to be dealing with that? No, you want to go done. And keep in mind, that's about 180 degrees. So that's a lot of turning of this. It's funny because of a Burris RT6 that costs, a quarter the price has already a throw lever built into it that's fully adjustable, and you can move it 360 degrees around in whatever many 20-degree increments. I don't know why this doesn't have that, or at least I don't know why Vortex just doesn't include the throw lever when you buy this thing. That's probably the only gripe I have. Fit and finish is sublime. Everything on this thing is perfect. You're going to be hard-pressed to find something that you don't like. The one thing you might be saying, well, it looks chunky, and it does. But I think it comes down to the size of the turrets. These turrets are massive, including the Illumination ring. It's just big. It's a big assembly, but it doesn't really feel that big when you use it. To compare it next to something, this is a little foreshadowing. This is a Trigicon AccuPoint 1-4. And if I put these side by side for you, you'll quickly see that there's not that much of a size difference as far as overall length. Actually, let me get the front lined up. Overall length is very close, but just look at the center section, just how much girthier it is. That's the only thing about this scope, the Razor HD, that makes it look big. Other than that, it's not too bad. And speaking of throw levers, the Trigicon only being a 1-4 and being much less expensive, look at that, has a throw lever built into it, which is nice. And with that, I finish this video. Sparks, thank you so much for being the true gentleman and scholar that you are for sending the scope in for review. It means so much, and it's been an absolute joy every second that I've had this. I'm sure you can't wait to get this thing back, so this will be going out in the mail hopefully tomorrow. Everything about this is awesome. As close to perfect as I would say you will ever need in any sort of LPVO like this. But you pay a price for that. The price is $1,400 before any sort of mount and a throw lever. So this current setup with the throw lever is a little bit over $1,600. But I'll tell you this, if I needed to trust my life to something, it would be this over any other LPVO I've ever used. And that's saying something. Thank you very much for watching. See you again next time.